Hey guys, today I have a very special guest. Excited to do an interview with Michelle with InterNACHI. She's one of the leading inspection firms for My Safe Florida Home, doing lots of inspections for the state of Florida. And we're excited, Michelle, to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I've got some questions for you today that I think our folks would love to hear more about, and you're the expert, so I'm gonna tee you up and let you speak about all the things you know about. So the first question that I want to hit you with today is when we refer to a wind, in a mitigation inspection here in Florida, what does that mean, and what does that process look like?
A wind mitigation inspection is an inspection that is designed for homeowners to get, hopefully, a little extra money off on their insurance. So, the insurance carrier, when they're writing the policy, they're going to request a couple inspections. One of them may be a wind mitigation inspection. It is not required, but it is the only way to get discounts on your insurance. So, we're looking at 7 different items. And then based on the answers of those items, that will tell the insurance carrier, the insurance underwriter, what discounts you are eligible for with that particular home.
Awesome, awesome. So when you talk about these inspections, what are the challenges that the inspectors face when they try to perform these actual inspections on a person's home?
Sure. And this is true whether it's a My Safe Florida home inspection, whether it is an inspection done on the retail side, not through My Safe Florida home. When an inspector comes out to do a wind mitigation inspection, the most important thing is for that inspector to be able to have access to the areas that he needs to look at. That's the biggest item that inspectors struggle with. So, for example, the inspector has to be able to go into your attic space and go to the wall where it meets in the go up in your attic and then go to the walls because they're looking to see how the roof is attached to the walls. So if you have a lot of personal items stowed in the attic, then that is going to limit their access. If your attic access is in the back of a closet and you've got a shelf underneath of it, with grandma's memoirs on that shelf, right? Our inspectors are not going to move your personal items to get access to that attic. So it's important if you're going to schedule this type of inspection that you clear that space and allow the inspector to have proper access. If you don't, the inspector is going to mark that he has no access to those areas, and that is going to hurt you on this inspection. You're not going to
Got it.
potentially get that discount.
So technically, the initial inspection that the homeowner needs to have done, obviously, to proceed with My Safe Florida Home, might not be able to occur if the homeowner hasn't gone ahead proactively and cleared out their attic space for this inspector, right?
So the state will pay for the initial inspection, but they're not going to pay for the inspector to make repeated visits to your property. So when you get that approval to have the initial inspection, you need to go and check, okay, can he get into my attic? Have I
Mhm.
made a clear space? And not just one side, both sides, because things can be different on both sides. So you just want to make sure you're prepared ahead of time because they're not going to be able to come back and make repeated visits.
Got it. So once that initial inspection is done for My Safe Florida Home, what do they need to know about that first inspection report that they're going to get?
One of the biggest things that we see is homeowners have in their mind maybe the potential update that they want to do. And sometimes homeowners don't realize how important reading that report is in its entirety. It's going to have a list of the recommended improvements, but it's also going to say these are your ratings on all of the other items. So, as much as it's important to know what you can improve, it's also important to know what else the inspection says, because that inspection could very well be different than what your insurance agent has on file. And if your insurance agent has something different on file, depending on what you choose to improve, it could still end up being an issue when it comes time to do the final inspection.
All right, Michelle, you definitely mentioned the final inspection. So let's talk a little bit about that. What impact do you think, that final inspection might have to that homeowner going through the process? And what's important things that I know you mentioned that they need to ensure of during construction to make sure there's no surprises during that final inspection?
Sure, absolutely. So, when a final inspection is completed, inspectors are going to review the project that you picked and the work that the contractor has done. So, most important, don't begin any project until you have that approval from the state and your contractor's approved and they say, okay, go get your work done. Once you're approved for that project, you can pull all appropriate permits. Permits are necessary. So make sure that the permit is pulled and make sure that the work you do matches your permit. So if your permit says you're going to do 5 large missile impact rated windows, make sure that's what you do. Many times we see where permits don't match the work that's done, and that's going to cause you drama. So make sure that happens. The other thing is the program does require some very specific updates when you are making improvements. So, for details on those, it's very important that homeowners read the homeowner's guide to look for the instruction and the guidelines for the specific improvement that they have picked and share that homeowner's guide with your contractor. Your contractor is going to do a great job, but your contractor is not familiar with this program and the program's guidelines. So you want to make sure, even though he says, I know what I'm doing, that you show him what the program requires. Be your own advocate and make sure that he knows what the program requires. And that's going to help make sure that you get reimbursed at the end.
Awesome. And so my last quick question for you is obviously as part of the process, the homeowner needs to take a copy of that final inspection and review that with their insurance agent. So what would you recommend if either the homeowner or that their agent have any questions about the final inspection report? What would you advise them do?
The first thing I would do is reach out to the inspection company and ask questions about that. The biggest challenge, honestly, goes back to the initial inspection. Make sure that when you get the initial inspection, you read it in its entirety, not just the improvements, because many times we see where there's an answer on the initial that isn't maybe what your insurance agent has. And that same answer is now present on the final, and that causes surprises. So, make sure you're reviewing both inspections with your agent and potential effects, and then that will help you choose the wisest improvement to save the most money on your insurance.
Fantastic advice. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today and for all the support you guys do for the state of Florida.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again.